I used to work on Wall Street, had a personal, very traumatic accident, to cope with which I started practicing mindfulness. And 2 months later, I was feeling better. So I got curious what was happening. Eventually, I left a successful Wall Street career to go back to school. I was already a computer engineer, but I enrolled in NYU's neuroscience and clinical social work program. I became a clinical social worker and neuroimmunology researcher. Three doctors in 2019 in New York City took their own lives by suicide in 3 weeks because they were burned out. So, burnout is a very big problem in hospital workers.
Is there a challenge or potentially a failure or something happened, a story in the progression and development of this app that you would like to share with other entrepreneurs and business owners that you think they can learn from, something that changed the way that you looked at business in general?
So,
Welcome to the Art of Kaizen for Entrepreneurs, growing 1% everyday podcast.
Hello, and welcome to the Art of Kaizen for Entrepreneurs podcast, where we discuss how to grow 1% every day in both business and itself. Today, we have Ayman Mukerji, the owner of Javika App, the company that has cracked the code on burnout for hospital workers. Ayman's system has set a micro habits that have helped companies such as the Cleveland Clinic, who have reduced their burnout by 68% and reduced attrition by 10% within 4 months. Super excited to hear how her app is helping hospital workers find balance in their life. Thank you, Ayman, so much for joining me today.
thank you for having me.
You know, it's such a difficult problem in today's market. There's so much happening to survive. It seems like today you have to have multiple jobs and multiple things to do. And especially for our hospitals and our clinical workers, there is so much stress on their shoulders. To create something that allows them to find oneself and find balance and find peace is so important. Can you talk to us about how this idea was created, kind of your background around it, and how you created the company that it is today?
Awesome. So, my background, actually, I have to go back a few years now. I used to work on Wall Street, had a personal, very traumatic accident, to cope with which I started practicing mindfulness. And 2 months later, I was feeling better. So, I got curious what was happening. Eventually, I left a successful Wall Street career to go back to school. I was already a computer engineer, but I enrolled in NYU's neuroscience and clinical social work program. I became a clinical social worker and neuroimmunology researcher. In the process of working with Langone, NYU Langone Hospital, my colleagues who were physicians asked me to teach them meditation. And this was year 2019. I read up, why are they asking to meditate? Three doctors in 2019 in New York City took their own lives by suicide in 3 weeks because they were burned out. So, burnout is a very big problem in hospital workers. Half of them are planning to leave their jobs because they're burned out. Hospitals spending $15 billion a year to replace them. And if we continue at this current rate by 2030, 17% of Americans will not be able to find a provider. So it's really bad. I read up. I walked into the room, taught them how to meditate, checked in a month later. Nobody practiced afterwards. So what was happening? I had to find out. So I did customer interviews with hundreds of doctors, and I really mean hundreds across North America. They were just volunteering their times because the problem was so bad, they wanted it fixed. Two issues with the current wellness solutions. One, they didn't have time. These doctors, nurses, and other hospital workers, they don't have time, not even 5 minutes a day. Two, meditation is too spiritual for them. They're scientists, so they need something a little more practical. So I went back to the drawing board because this seemed like a possible problem to crack. I said, okay, there are mindfulness techniques, and mindfulness is very practical. I did a poll, all doctors and nurses said, yes, we could do mindfulness. It works for us. So mindfulness-based therapies are there, but they still take time, 8 weeks at least, and intensive courses. So how about we break those skills down to 1 to 2 minutes a day? And that became the thesis of my then project, a personal project, but then it became my product. I worked with 30 hospital systems across America and they were paying me to develop this product. Developed it, and I have an amazing, guide mentor at Cleveland Clinic now. He became my guide. He was the CEO of that hospital back then, one of the Cleveland Clinic hospitals. He invited me, said, okay, let's do a study. We studied with doctors and nurses in his hospital at Cleveland Clinic. 2 months later, three findings. One, we helped them reduce burnout by at least 50%. We measure this with a benchmark. It's a gold standard of Maslow burnout inventory. Two, it's a 50% reduction in burnout. Two, and actually, they started at 13% attrition, this group. At the end of this intervention, it went to 0%. It's a huge jump. The third piece was to confirm how whether this our product had anything to do with this. Well, guess what? Our product was being used. The monthly repeat usage was 70%, which is 2 to 4 times higher than a organizational wellness product. So then I just decided, okay, it works. And then we did many studies, including IRB studies, but we released our app and that became history. And, now we have several B2B. It's a B2B product. So we sell it to hospitals and hospitals offer it for free to their employees to reduce burnout.
What a beautiful story and incredible statistics. I mean, honestly, the attrition of these style of employees that you look at a hospital and you look at a doctor, they dedicated 8 to 12 years of their practice of their life to be in that position, and to find the next one is not as easy as finding, say, a restaurant worker. So to be able to work against the attrition there and be able to build something that was being used so regularly and had a direct impact on not just, I'm assuming, their work life, but their entire life coming out of that. What year was the app finally released?
It was released in 2023, and we already demonstrated a hockey stick curve in our revenue. It went from the first year 30K to K, and this year, in the next year, we're on track and generating a $1 million revenue. So
Congratulations. I mean, extreme hockey curve. Yeah, that's incredible. Most businesses are trying to, if they can get 100% return year over year, they're happy. But to see, a 5x growth within a year is absolutely incredible. You had a very clear problem that you were looking to solve inside of the market, and develop a system that gave people the opportunity to just relax. Can you explain to us how you're leveraging these micro habits and how the doctors are using them in their daily practice to improve their burnout and be just generally happier with the job that they have?
great question. Thanks for asking that. So the way we started off with 100 micro habits was purely a content business. And the micro habits, I'll give you some example, could be something like, related to if you're super stressed, you get a nudge on your app and it gives you as simple as a breathing exercise, like alternate nostril breathing or different kinds of breathings. But let's say you're having difficulty finishing documentation, which is a very common issue with doctors and nurses. They spend hours during their day just finishing and typing into patient records. And that's just a clunky system that will be fixed eventually, but would take decades of work. What do we do to make their lives easier? So productivity microhabit could be, they look it up and it's 25 minutes of work where you set a milestone for yourself. And then the last 5 minutes of that half an hour, you do something that's not completely non-work related. And each of these micro habits are actually tested before. So the last one I mentioned is actually not my invention. It's called Pomodoro technique, and it was done by many people. There are books written on it. The first one is obviously an ancient technique. But now there is a twist to this story. It's now what we're doing is we're integrating to your wearable devices. This quarter's release includes a prediction of burnout before it happens, and then nudges you with personalized microhabit prescription. In addition, we're also adding a micro coaching AI twin. So we had a train the trainer program, which was super successful at hospitals where people could actually do this. So now our trainer is simply AI, and you can face the AI. Now, obviously, so just to give you a background of how we are predicting burnout, it's pretty simple, right? You have a heart rate variability data. which is basically a measure of how resilient your body, your physiological systems are in face of stress. So heart rate variability is higher heart rate variability is good. You're more resilient. But a lower heart rate variability simply means your heartbeats are going really like soldiers because you are under stress. So that shows HRV, heart rate variability, as lower. So when you're stressed, your HRV is lower. And if it's low for 5 consecutive days without a break, then you would find that you're hitting chronic stress. So you have acute stress, which is good for you. You get works done, right? And then you have chronic stress, which is amber. And then you have 2 months of that, you have burnout. So we're finding when you're hitting the amber state and giving you the intervention, micro intervention that you could do.
Super power. I have to go back because I have something ringing in my mind of
Yeah.
you talked about when you were talking to these doctors and you were doing all these surveys to assessing your product and assessing the
Yeah.
service that you were doing, that mindfulness was accepted across doctors. Now, I don't know if it's a concept of or the terminology of mindfulness is what allowed them to fit that in their mind space. But did you feel that the whole concept of spirituality or mindfulness or finding oneself was kind of taboo within the space? And then how did you adapt that mindfulness ideology to really fit within the doctor's concepts?
That's a great question. And you hit the nail on its head because the key here is has to be super quick, super simple, but it also has to be believable by scientists. And we're talking about the second part. How is it so believable suddenly? You have meditation apps, but they don't do it. Now, it has to be super practical. So all of the things that we do have simple, practical, physical steps, if you will. It's not about soft instructions, not about, close your eyes and go to your happy place, or even more softer than that, or finding yourself, in fact, could be one. Although it's very obvious to a lot of us, but doctors have a little bit of a resistance to something of that nature. So what we do is we break down the micro habits into really digestible scientific goals that they could do, smart goals, if you will. But at the end of the micro habit in the app, you also have evidence. So, we actually present with scientific papers, links to them showing 3 things physically that have changed, improved after that has been done. So each of the micro habits have been tested in the lab, if you will, and shown. But there is a taboo. I do want to address that a little bit because our policies with physicians and nurses, mental health are tricky because, on one hand, of course, you want your provider to be in solid health. But mental health is tricky. We all go through ups and downs. But a licensed clinician could get in trouble for reporting that they have major, MDD, depressive disorder. So there is a big stigma in going to a psychiatrist or a psychologist. So this being a habit thing removes that stigma because we're not trying to deal with your mental health in terms of fixing a broken issue in your mind, but we're actually helping you become even better, even more productive, even more powerful. And that is very appealing.
What a beautiful way to reframe that and put it in a position that's not only digestible with the small action steps, but accepted by the consumer base that you're going after and the
Mm.
entrepreneurs and the business owners listening to this right now. Understand how we could be saying these things in multiple different ways, but the way that Aman has really positioned the product, the app, and her messaging around her business fits her consumer avatar. It's very critical because she was looking to help out a certain group of individuals. And if she would have brought an app of spirituality or even a psychiatrist app to support doctors, it would never have fit. But the way that her product and her messaging fit within the consumer avatar that she's looking to target allows it to resonate with all of doctors, and understanding these small micro habits, which are things that they're going to be doing each day, are there to help them execute and be better and not have that burnout, which are all problems that they're having. Instead of saying be with oneself or be mindful in the morning, which will lead you to be a happier individual. Doctors, I don't think would have really resonated with that too much, right? So I love that. And you're hitting a strong point where I think you're ahead of the curve when it comes to a lot of the things that we're seeing in today's society. And I believe the product here is going to help. As you said, it by 2030, we'd be in a very rough position if the process continues to go the way that we're at today. So with this in mind, how do you see the evolution of your app and your business within the ecosystem? Do you find this to stay with doctors and clinicians, clinical doctors specifically, or do you see it opening up to different avatars and different consumers that maybe are not in the medical space?
That's a great question, Kyle, because we're actually organically growing into other adjacent, we call them adjacent burned out industries. We, in the last couple of weeks, we signed a new 2-year contract with a law firm, and lawyers are very burned out. So definitely, you know, I would say everyone is burned out today, uh, entrepreneurs included, right? I mean, you name it, even teenagers. But the point is, this applies to everyone. And if it could help an ER nurse to feel a little bit better in their day to day schedule, hectic schedule, to say the least, this would work for anyone else that's burned out. And that's really the premise of this. The future is really our vision, if you will, is to eradicate burnout globally across everyone.
That's a powerful statement, very powerful statement. Because, as I said earlier, not only is it seems like the world itself has more pressure on everybody's shoulders, from a teenager to an ER doctor. It seems like there's no guidance on what we should do with this additional pressure. And I love the fact that your desire, your mission, and your vision is to help that overall burnout, so that we with burnout comes lack of creativity, comes lack of enjoyment, it
Yeah.
comes all the negative attributes that have on the back end of just overworking yourself leads to you losing yourself completely. And it happens time and time again. And it's a beautiful thing that you're working to not only, I mean, for a business owner to lower attrition itself is incredible, right? To say that you can keep your staff there longer and your people are going to love what they do and stay with you for longer, that's worth its weight in gold. But then to say the same thing for, say, a lawyer is in a very emotional state. A lot of the
Mm.
times he's dealing with multiple different things, and to be able to be within oneself throughout that process is extremely powerful. And see, as entrepreneurs and business owners that are listening to this right now, hear how when she's looking into these different consumer avatars, she's bringing things in like lawyers. She starts addressing their specific pain points, their problems, what they're personally going through, so that it's not so that she can rebuild her business for these consumers. It's how does my product that's made for removing burnout, how does that fit within these different avatars? And yes, it might be a little bit different messaging and a little bit different positioning when it comes to the sales process or through your creative and your content. But at the end of the day, if your mission and your goal and your vision is structured in a way to solve a problem, you will find that problem in other areas. And being able to work through that process with each individual avatar gives you the strength to expand your business and expand your potential consumer base. Super, super powerful. I absolutely love it. You know, do you see that the continued process of this, is there really any competitors in your space?
So the way we look at the competitive space is actually three and a half segments. So one is meditation app. I mean, there are some giants out there like, Calm, Headspace. I really love them. The second one is mental health habit. Noom is amazing. Noom has changed the world of weight loss or by just changing habits, and they have introduced Noom Mood. So that could be one. The third one is Talkspace or some therapy app. These are all really good, really, really good. But I think what you touched on was very important, and you kind of read my mind because I was going to add to my last paragraph, if you will, that one of the things we did was we looked at a segment that's struggling and we purpose built our product to their requirements instead of telling them we have a mass product, use this. Because that everyone suffers, especially when you're burned out, you wouldn't have time to meditate for 10 minutes, even 5 minutes. That would feel like chore. And when you fail to do that, you know what? You're probably going to feel more stressed. So that's going to make their lives more difficult. So we kind of narrowed in and said, okay, who are really, really burned out, and just let's see what we could do to fix this, or at least help them. The other half, but I talked about three and a half, right? The half that I see are new entrants. Because the problem is really big, I am seeing VCs opening up now to future of work in healthcare. And that's all to change burnout. And I do see the entrants there are not quite our competitors. There are some that are changing EHR, the electronic health record, which causes a lot of documentation, which in turn causes burnout. But that's not really competition. That's going to happen for decades. And we have to address the problem right now before 2030. There are also financial wellness startups that are coming in for our healthcare workers. And those are really important because healthcare workers really jump from college, especially doctors, college education to practicing. So they don't have the opportunity to learn finances. But these are really not our direct competitors. But I would assume there will be new entrants in the future.
I think that's a good thing to hear because as long as we have your energy and your focus being on a topic of helping people be better selves, right? Is I think is such a critical thing. A lot of recent studies have come out from grounding mats, weighted blankets, understanding energy, meditation, yoga became big roughly about, I would say about 15 years ago. Practice has been around for eons, but at the end of the day, it really became, I would say, socially accepted roughly around 15 to 20 years ago. But now we're taking the whole next step as we evolve and become a more of an ever moving machine of society. And we have developed all these new ways of thinking and all these new tools that we're using regularly. The burnout is more applicable than ever. And just so everyone listening, you spending your time on your social media device and going through Instagram or TikTok is not a relaxation point for your mind whatsoever. What Aman is talking about here is these micro habits that allow you to be at one with your mind. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the other things I want to touch upon when we mentioned competitors, there's a reason why I didn't mention the following because they're not competition. We're a supplement to them. But it's important to mention there are big players in this game, which is the hospital's own wellness program. In fact, what we do, I mean, they offer a lot of in-house programs, such as, those who want to do meditation, they would drop in once a week or so, or if they have therapists and someone who's really, you know, whose patient passed away. That's a tough one, right? So they would need those. That's not going to go away. And that is the Office of Wellness is an important partner for us. So we actually work and collaborate with them and say, okay, you're doing a great job in being in house, on call for these folks. Let us be the tool that you give to your workers in their pocket whenever they need it. So we're basically saying, okay, we're the supplement to the hospital's own wellness program. And this is useful because we're just building habits. Habits are skills that you repeat enough times that your body knows to do it before your mind does, like brushing teeth in the morning. So we're trying to turn stress management into a habit through this. And you need an app for that, basically.
Yes. I have to ask, have you got any pushback from the hospitals? And this is a big topic of conversation of a lot of the hospitals have gone down a what is the best terminology to use, but they've gone down a path where they have a heavy recommendation for medication, right? And if someone is burnt out or if they're stressed, it's like, okay, well, we probably have a medication for that. Have you felt that pushback? Have you gotten that pushback in the process of building your business, or has people been very open to this concept?
I mean, when we started, the problem was so desperate that people were just looking for a life raft. So, anything you give people, you only are end users. So we have two kinds of clients. One is the end user of the apps, which is the doctors, nurses, medical students. They're super grateful when they get something like this because someone is thinking about them. And when the employer buys the licenses on their behalf, it's a huge win-win situation. It's a small investment, it's a subscription-based app, and we have the advantage of scale, right? So hospital systems are large. A small to medium hospital system could be 23,000 users. So charging $5 per user per month, and for them to pay that for the return on investment is not that much of a cost. Now, because I mentioned this point, I want to mention the ROI piece of this. So to replace a doctor, hospital spends half a million to $1.5 million recruiting, training, floating, travel, staff, and so on. To replace nurses, which we have 5 times more than doctors, is about 60,000. But there is volume, right? We're losing nurses. A lot of them are retiring because they're exhausted. So if a hospital spends 100, so let's say they spend 100, well, $12,000. So I'm doing the math because we're a tiered pricing model based on the number of users. So if you have 100 users, you're going to pay $10 per user per month. If you have more than 100, close to 500 plus, you're going to pay $5 per user. So if you have 100 users on the platform, hospital pays $12,000 in a year. You know how much they get a return by saving on retention is actually $1 million. So for $12,000 spend, the hospital is getting $1 million savings. So the equation is pretty good for them in their minds. That's one of the things we're trying because you are a marketing agency, I would say. We're actually now looking at hyper scaling the product. So we are talking to employee assistance programs. We're being introduced to EAPs through hospitals and benefits programs that would give us, so each third party benefit provider would have 10 hospitals like this. So we immediately 10x our reach. So that's a marketing strategy that we're testing as we speak.
I have one point and one question on the back end of it. One point is it's probably doing a lot more for retention than just for the doctors and the nurses, because once the doctors and nurses have reduced burnout and they're enjoying their job more, the medical staff that's there, the additional support, the janitor that might
Yeah.
be being just revved through your business and you're going after janitor, you don't know why. It's because the staff is burnt out, so they're treating them unjustly, and it leads to an entire environment of people not wanting to work at that location. And I believe from what I'm hearing that this could
Yeah.
help across the board. My next question for you is, do you have a direct to consumer route? Do you plan on releasing this to the general populace to be more of like a calm style app?
So that's a good question. And by the way, on your previous point, absolutely correct. When a hospital purchases this is actually not just for clinical staff, it's also for non-clinical. Everyone benefits from it. To answer the D2C model, now we have had a lot of success and more than we even expected with B2B in a space that's very hard to penetrate, medical field, because there's a big need and we're serving it. Now, we are continuing to focus on that because that is our sweet spot. And there are lots of benefits to pursuing and focusing on that because we get huge scale. We do a land and expand model for the product, typical SaaS type of implementation, although this is not a typical SaaS product, it's a mobile app. But once we expand, it's huge scale and lower maintenance. However, that said, we are getting channel partners such as medical education companies like Leo and larger management consulting firms like McKinsey that want to add our product. And they have already done that. McKinsey actually have us on their benefits perk. So for them, we are offering sort of a B2B2C type of situation where they're advertising our product to their employees and the employees are downloading. And there is a version of the app called My Javika now in iOS and Android for that purpose. So anyone can download it if they want to.
Beautiful. Yeah, I was wondering if I could get this on my phone. I mean, you did a breathing exercise with me before we even started here, and it was incredible. I mean, after a long Friday of work, it's something to realize that time's not moving that quick. You have
Yeah.
control. Slow yourself down, and you're able to breathe through it. I'd like to shift now a little bit towards you and ask some more, personal questions about the
Yeah.
development because obviously you've built something extremely powerful here, and it had a tumultuous journey from being in Wall Street and then moving over into this space. You know, when you created this business and you moved into this to the development of this app, obviously you went through a lot of R&D to get it launched. But is there a challenge or potentially a failure or something happened, a story in the progression and development of this app that you would like to share with other entrepreneurs and business owners that you think they could learn from, something that changed the way that you looked at business in general?
That's a good question. That's really good question. I constantly think about these because I honestly think we learn more from failures and challenges than successes. So, I was quite successful. I was a very young managing director at a very large financial organization, but I was a paid employee, right? And had great colleagues, a lot of pats on the back. But then I started the entrepreneurship, which is a very different journey. There is nobody to pat you on your back other than yourself. So that was a big challenge and it continues to be. And the mindset of an entrepreneur has to be very different than an employee's mindset. Why? You constantly, I mean, grit is one thing, and you constantly have to evolve to cater to the user's need. You never can be complacent. Fail fast is something that I really follow. Well, the big setback was when I walked into a room full of doctors that really came to learn meditation. That's what I was asked to do in New York City. And room was so full that there weren't enough chairs to hold the doctors. So there were people sitting on the ground. So I felt very flattered. But the biggest setback was a month later when I checked in on every one of them, none of them meditated. So I wasn't so great after all. It wasn't about me. That's the big thing, right? It was about meeting. I think the learning from that experience, that setback, was the birth of this app. First of all, I knew that meditation wouldn't work. So I took that setback as a learning point, an aha moment on why a lot of these big apps, meditation apps, aren't working for them. Because I started this whole journey, although the app was released in 2023 and 2019, pre-pandemic. And during pandemic, the big apps gave licenses or sold licenses to hospitals to give this app for free to the hospital workers, but nobody used it. And this aha moment taught me why they weren't using it. So I would say use the failure and don't take it personally because it's really about the product. And that's a big mindset shift. It's about the idea. And I hope this idea outlives me and this product outlives me. And I think um when you're an entrepreneur, my mindset is it's really, of course it is about the founder and what they do, but it's more than that. It's way more than that. It is an idea, a problem that you're so passionate to solve, you don't care about your own ego. And learn, learn, and learn. So those are a few of my takeaways. But you know what? There are more. Like rejections happen, wins happen. We won the grand prize at NYU Stern's Entrepreneurship Challenge last year. They became our investors. It was really an amazing moment. We had champagne to celebrate at NYU and all of that. But I actually like not right when it happens. I like the rejections. I like the failures because those are the ones that really give us data points that we need to make our product unique.
Don't be afraid to fail. And
Yeah.
and you said fail fast. Is that was the term that you used?
Yes,
Love that.
constantly. Like put it out there. It's never going to be perfect. So put an imperfect product out there. I mean, of course, not a terrible one, but good enough product and see what happens. Watch your users and then come back to the drawing board and redo it.
Incredible sentiment to all the business owners and entrepreneurs listening to this right now. And across the board, I think all of us as entrepreneurs need to understand that we are the ones that, as what is the book? We are the ones that, as Atlas say, put the world on our shoulders, and we are the ones that move the world forward through the efforts of our business. Lonnie, I have one final question for you. Obviously, you have studied mindfulness and have studied an understanding of how to help people in the burnout stage. But obviously, as the entrepreneur, you probably develop your own burnout and your own processes. What do you do to find your Kaizen? And for the listeners out there, Kaizen is a Japanese business philosophy that means to take small steps towards a larger goal or to improve 1% every single day in both business and itself. What are you doing in your personal life to continue to make sure that you're not getting burnt out and that you are progressing forward and constantly taking those leaps forward to improve yourself and your business every day?
What a great word. First of all, this concept of Kaizen, and it's very much in alignment with what we're trying to do with micro habits, right? 1% growth each day. Now, yeah, there are moments when there is burnout. I wouldn't say burnout. I wouldn't let it get to that point, but there are moments of disappointment or tough days. What I do is I try to work-life balance. That concept I really don't think exists on a continuum. I kind of calibrate my work or my personal life based on what to expect that day and what is thrown at me. I also remember the second thing is I remember there is always a tomorrow. If I don't get something done today, I have a fresher mind that I'll come back to it tomorrow. What is the third? Yeah, I meditate. I actually do meditate every single day. To me, meditation has saved my life, and I believe in it. I'm in no way I'm actually not religious or don't believe in any of those things, but I do believe that if you take care of your mind, it gives back something to you. And what I do for productivity was I try to set goals, and at the end of the day, I make sure that I at least feel I've achieved something. Things that I really put off, I want to get those done right away because those are the most important things that give you results.
Yes, I believe that it is Jordan Peterson, a very, very incredible quote that I heard from him, which is that the success that you're looking for is hidden behind the things that you're fearful to do and the things that are slowing you down. So being able to go after incredible information and overall a product and service that it really is needed, right? To hear some of the data points and be a little fearful of we need doctors. We need people that can support the medical field and that to keep us all healthy. And for the fact that those are the consumers that are the workers that are burning out the most. And this product directly helps them is super powerful. If there was a hospital worker or say a doctor listening to this right now and they wanted to connect with you and get this into their practice or into their hospital, what would be the first steps? How do people find you? How do people get connected with you?
That's a great question. So we have a website called mindfuljivika.com. Our app is if you're an individual doctor who wants to just download it, go to the App Store, search My Jivika, one word, and you will see it. You can download it. Finally, my email is quite public, so Ayman@mindfuljivika.com. Email me. My doors are open. I'm here to serve you.
This is awesome. Thank you so much for your time. If you guys have finished this podcast, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next Kaizen podcast.